All right, today we're talking about entrepreneurship and psychedelics. What do those two have to do with one another, and how can one help support the other? My guest today is Matt Zemon. I'll tell you more about him in a second, so stay tuned.
Welcome to the Smart Business Revolution podcast, where we feature top entrepreneurs, business leaders, and thought leaders and ask them how they built key relationships to get where they are today. Now, let's get started with the show.
All right, welcome everyone. John Corcoran here. I'm the host of this show. And, every week we talk with smart CEOs, founders, and entrepreneurs from all kinds of different companies. We've had Netflix and Grubhub, Redfin, Gusto, Kinko's, Activation Blizzard, Lending Tree. Go check out the archives. Lots of great episodes for you to check out there. And, of course, this episode brought to you by Rise 25, where we help businesses to give to and connect to their dream relationships and partnerships. How do we do that? We do that by helping you to run your podcast. We are the easy button for any company to launch and run a podcast. We do three things: strategy, accountability, and full execution. And we also created what some are calling the Wix or the Squarespace of B2B podcasting. It's our platform podcast co-pilot. So go to our website, rise25.com, or email our team at support@rise25, and you can learn all about it. All right, jumping into today's guest, his name is Matt Zemon. He is a psychedelic wellness advocate, mental health entrepreneur, longtime seasoned entrepreneur, and best-selling author. And he's an advocate for psychedelics for everyone. Written a number of different books on it, and holds a master's degree in psychology and neuroscience. And so has really understands both. Has the personal experience behind it, and also has the academic understanding behind psychedelics, which has been really a hot topic in health and wellness for a number of years now. And so excited to have him here on the show. But Matt, I told you beforehand that we love to start by knowing a little bit about our guests and what they were like as a kid, so that we can understand what we were like, who we are as an adult. And this is one I've never heard before. Okay, I've heard people selling gum at school, heard people selling pot at school, I've heard people selling erasers at school. You've sold pencil shavings. Tell me about the pencil shavings. How do you sell pencil shavings?
Constantly trying to find ways to make money, even from an early age, and I had this idea that if I took the pencil shavings and I created a board game on a piece of lined paper, that kids might pay enough money so I can go get some pretzels on the way home from the pretzel vendor. I was growing up in a center city, Philadelphia, and we're big on our pretzels. And it worked. And again, this was not a business built to scale. This was not a business that was built to sell. It was a business built to acquire pretzels, and it worked for that. For
pencil shavings and board game. How does that work?
Those little square pencil sharpeners we had, and we turn them, and they make those little So people would come, and I'd pay a quarter, or they pay a quarter for the pencil shavings, and then a game that they could play using the pencil shavings.
Okay.
It was just a thing. It was a thing. It was.
You must have some good sales skills. You must have some good sales skills. Here's some crap that is the discard from my pencil. I'm going to sell it to you for a quarter. So that's pretty impressive. And then you also sold your sister's toys. Your parents went away for the weekend, and you sold your sister's toys.
So much trouble. I ended up running a casino on our front porch. And so part of it was using her toys as, like, you throw the hoop over the stuffed animal and you can win the stuffed animal. And I didn't really care because it was her stuffed animals. And then part of it was those were the prizes for a bunch of different things. So parents came back. She was very upset that many of her toys were missing, and I had to walk around the neighborhood and buy them back. At least the kids were nice to not sell them back to me at a margin. I was able to basically give the money back, but
that's funny.
Big trouble in the house, and I do not recommend selling your sister's toys at any point.
Probably good advice. You've started a number of different companies. Some more successful than others. I know one was an American Indian entertainment company that you worked with. What was this?
It was so much fun. I mean, in '94, I was picked to be the producer of the All Nations meeting at the White House. So this was the Clinton administration and the leaders of the 545 tribes, the federally recognized tribes. And I made friends with different tribal leaders. And as I
hold on, take a step, a few steps backwards. I worked in the Clinton White House.
Hey, look at that.
Yeah,
do you remember that All
picture
Nations
back here.
meeting?
Well, not in '94. I was there a little bit later.
Okay.
But you don't just like organize an event at the White House. So take me a few steps backwards. How do you
take you a few steps back?
how'd that happen?
they were partnering with the National Congress of American Indians, which is a an organization out of DC. That organization needed a young producer to raise some money for this event, and then actually to do all the logistics, from meetings at the Sheraton with Gore and Shalala and Cisneros to a meeting on the White House lawn, and as well as juggling all these tribal leaders from across the country, the buses, the stuff. It was a series of meetings, and we answered like an RFP and was picked to do it. So I was working for an event marketing company at the time, and that was a big project for me and
What an
loved it.
amazing
Oh my
experience.
gosh, such a great experience
Wow.
to meet these tribal leaders. And then afterwards, I made friends. So I traveled the country and I was visiting different people. I had done some work in the entertainment industry, and it just somehow I noticed a gap in talent and tracking of American Indian talent. So really, my first business in that space was a database of American Indian talent, where I just created a database. So then when PBS was looking for a hoop dancer, they called me. When Annie Get Your Gun went to Broadway and needed American Indian casting, we did it.
Mm.
And then that led to actually producing our own stage shows and our own albums. And my idea at the time, this was when the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act was happening, if you remember that. So this was
Hmm.
the Indians taking the rights back to have casino gaming on their land. And my thought was, if we could showcase Indians as contemporary people with a traditional background, we could help shift the perception of them, and people could understand why they needed gaming today and what that was rooted in from the past. So that was the idea behind Tribe. Was the big show. We partnered with the guy who produced Rent, a guy named Kevin McCollum, to produce that. It was really a beautiful, passionate, a living time of life. And that was a very different experience than some of my other businesses, which were more successful financially, but less heart involved.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that was that journey.
So that was more of a passion project. Talk about Bernard. This is one you
Mm,
still have.
I
How did
do. It's
that
been
come
almost
about?
19 years now.
Where did the idea from it come from?
I was running a small cable television company, and this was really what looked like a cable TV company was really a variable data marketing company. So we were reselling Dish and DirecTV to multi-dwelling units. And we were great when we were selling bulk packages to these, when everybody in the condo, everybody in the assisted living, everybody in the hotel took the same thing, we were great. When there was any individualization, we were awful. We
Hmm.
couldn't bill properly and we couldn't answer the phones correctly. So I was like, oh, well, wait a minute. There's a bunch of private cable operators in this country. We could create a spin-off of this business that just supports them.
Mm.
And that's what Bernard was. We spun it off. We partnered with a company called CSG to resell their billing system. We ended up having call centers in America and in the Philippines. Um, and we created a turnkey, a billing system in a box,
Wow.
and
So
would manage small and medium-sized cable companies.
the insight there is funny because you said, "Wow, we're really bad at this. Let's make it a business." Right? It's kind of what you said.
I think that's when we all I think all the entrepreneurs we're like we can see, we can connect the dots in ways that others can't, and then more importantly, I think, than seeing that the dots that need to be connected, we have the um we don't mind doing the connection. Oh, okay, here's a gap, and rather than be annoyed by it, let's just go fix it.
Yeah.
And it's been super. That was a super successful business, um and not one that filled my soul with joy.
And that's a great transition to 2018, 2019. You have some friends who say, "Hey, we're going to do this psychedelic journey." Where were you at that point in life? Like, were you feeling financially fulfilled but not personally fulfilled? Why did you decide that you would go and end up participating in this experience?
I love that question, John. Because I think the honest answer is I didn't know how unfulfilled I was. I knew I didn't love what I did, but I also knew it paid all the bills and then some. And these friends said, why don't we hired a guy to do a guided psychedelic journey? Why don't you come and do this with us? And I didn't do drugs. It wasn't my thing. But they were like, look, you love to learn about yourself and you love travel. This is a great, like, think of this as a big trip and reading a book about you. Okay. And I really, the honest answer is I went in completely unprepared. And in that first journey, with these, again, all entrepreneurs, all people I trusted, Um, in that first journey, I reconnected with my mom who died when she was 49. I was 22. And I could kind of pull a string from her to me to my kids, and I could see how connected we were, and we were still. Um, I felt incredibly safe and loved, and then immediately realized, oh my gosh, I don't feel this safe and loved in my everyday life. What's going on with that? I felt what it feels like to feel the sorrow of the world and to feel the joy of, oh my God, a billion trillion accidents had to happen for me to be alive. All of that in 6 hours.
Wow.
Um, and I left that thinking, what was that? I need to learn more. I didn't know this world existed. I didn't know I could feel this way, and I wanted to learn more about it. And my check things off the list, intellectual, mind-based self said, let's go back to school and let's learn how to read scientific literature on this and let's study psychedelics. Okay, great. And something else said, but also go and work with maestros and taitas and MDs and experience different psychedelics and see how that feels in your body. And I did both. And I've explored the medical side of providing these tools, and I've explored deeply the spiritual side. And I think there's a place for both. And for me, I prefer working in the spiritual side.
And I mean, to say that this one experience had a massive impact on your life, your career, your trajectory, everything is definitely underestimating it. You know, you get up getting a master's, you studying for a doctor's now, doctors in ministry.
Hmm.
You've changed your life in so many different ways. Reflecting back on it now, I always like to ask this question. What was it like in the early days? Like when you go back and you tell the people close to you about the changes or they observe changes in you? Like, were they like, Matt, what's going on with you? Or were they like, Matt, you seem just so much more happy and at peace than you used to be?
I think all of that is true. I think there's definitely, I mean, especially with my wife, with my kids. I mean, my son, he's 20 now, it's 16. He was with a group of people, and I heard him actually say, "My father has never been more emotionally available." Okay,
Wow.
I don't know where he got that language, and that's kind of amazing. And um, I miss
And
some
this
hugs.
was 6 or 7 years ago. So he would have been 13 or so when you had the
Just a
first
couple
one?
years into it, but yeah, he was 16
Okay.
when he said that. He's just turned 20, so that was
Okay.
4 years ago. Yeah, people wondered what's going on. I mean, I quickly, very quickly got someone else to run my business. And
You didn't
um,
have that person before?
they were with me, but I moved them into a different role and really
Okay.
tried to make sure that I could spend my time focused on consciousness and not on P&Ls.
P&Ls, yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and that has been great. I mean, I've been on almost a 6, 7 year sabbatical.
Wow.
Deeply, deeply studying, deeply feeling, working with spiritual communities who are using psychedelics. We call them entheogens when they're used for spiritual purposes, learning how different people serve these medicines, learning about how do I take these insights and awakenings and awarenesses that happen in the medicine? How do I take that spiritual experience and turn that into a spiritual life? How do I move forward without forgetting those things? Very much subscribing to the theory of I've been who I am the entire time. I just forgot. And I
Mm.
layered stories and stories and stories on top of me to the point where I wasn't me. I wasn't acting as me. And how can I move through the world with that awareness and that presence? And that is the practice. That's what happens. When people think, oh, I'm coming to psychedelics for a cure, is often said. And I tell them all the time, psychedelics don't cure anything. These are catalysts which help put us into a state where then we can remember who we are. We can remember where we came from. Our own voice can come forward and can come out. Um, we don't need gurus or shaman or healers. It's not about that. It's a co-creation and a remembrance. And there's a lot that I have learned and that people can learn using these tools. And there's other ways up the mountain as well. It's not the only tool, and it's not a tool for everybody.
Mm. You mentioned trying different psychedelics. What was the first one you tried, and what are your thoughts on the range of different psychedelics out there? Because some are legal, like ketamine.
Yep.
Many are not legal. Many are hard to access, hard to find, and you have to be careful about where you consume them because of local laws.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Johns Hopkins talks about. So let me back up. We talk about what we're talking about safety here, and I never say psychedelics are safe. None of them are safe. Let's be clear on that. But they can be. What I talk about is relative risk. So there's a study at Imperial College, Dr. David Nutt, and he said, let's forget how drugs are classified, but let's just look at harm to self and harm to others. And on the far left-hand side of his chart, he talks about alcohol as a 72, most dangerous drug for self and others.
For
Okay, great.
sure.
And
Yeah.
you move your way down and you get to tobacco and you move all the way down to the right-hand side, you get to mushrooms, it's a 6. And 6 is less than 72, relatively safe, and a lot of harm can happen in the 6. So for
Mhm.
entrepreneurs and for people who are trying to reduce the risk as much as possible, the question is, what do you do? And what Johns Hopkins says and the research says is you pay attention to three things. You pay attention to source, where did your drugs come from? Set, what is your mindset going in? And setting, what is the physical environment that you are doing this medicine in? Um, there's no right or wrong. It's just what's right or wrong for you. And if you can pay attention to those three things, the probability of having a bad outcome is very low. But many of us have heard stories about people who've had very challenging experiences with psychedelics, and the most probable cause is one of those three or two of those things not being properly secured.
Hmm.
Just ran around the block though. You asked what medicines have I tried? What do I think
No,
about them?
that was a great answer though. Around, because that's an important point about safety, because that was what I thought for many years. I thought, oh, LSD is awful, bad,
Mm.
mushrooms are bad, psychedelics bad, and I've had police officers who told me that, I get called out for alcohol issues on calls all the time. I have never been called out for an issue related to mushrooms,
Yeah.
and so as far as he was concerned, he said, I would much rather the whole world consumes mushrooms and illegal, and alcohol is illegal or not, people just don't partake in it. So it's crazy the world that we live in, because we have something that's so damaging like alcohol that is so socially accepted and yet is so much more dangerous.
Yeah, I just didn't think about it in these terms. I mean, I grew up in a prohibition. I just didn't know it was a prohibition. And I didn't realize that these were just philosophies of operating. And I never thought twice about altering my state with alcohol. Um, Unlike the way I've been fed about, oh, danger, danger, danger with drugs. And once I got into this, when I learned that psilocybin, sticking with that active ingredient mushrooms, um, is both non-toxic and non-addictive.
Yeah.
There's only 3 known fatalities ever to psilocybin that's been tracked, and that's mostly from behavioral challenges. So yeah, it's been fascinating. So psilocybin, to answer your question, the magic mushrooms was my first entry. Um, I've had ketamine from different in the medical space, and I think that's really an interesting one for entrepreneurs to be aware of, because just because it's legal doesn't mean it's right. And what I mean by that is there is a philosophy within medical. So there are medical providers who can sell ketamine legally in all 50 states, who believe it's just a biochemical reaction. So you can go into your ketamine clinic and wherever you are, and you can buy your package, and they'll put you in a dentist chair, and you might have big screens in front of you, or allowed to use your phone, and they're going to stick an IV in your arm, and you're going to have a ketamine experience, 100% legal. And they believe it's just a biochemical reaction. There are other ketamine providers who are going to give you preparation sessions. They're going to put you in a nice, comfy room with a blanket and an eye mask and a music playlist and soft lights. And afterwards, they're going to help you integrate what came up for you. Also legal. They believe it's a biochemical, psychosocial, spiritual process. This is very much about consumer beware of what's right for you. There are also providers who you can buy your ketamine online and have it shipped to your house, and you can get lozenges and even shots. It's not that it's wrong. It's much less expensive, and for people where that's a big challenge, it's beautiful. And if people in remote areas, it's a beautiful option. And they need to know that they're not getting the same level of support as the others and just be able to supplement. So there's no right or wrong, but it's very much of consumer beware and what do you want? What do you believe in? Do you believe it's just biochemical? Okay, go for that. Are you looking for something deeper? You have to ask the questions. Um,
What's fascinating to me is there are people who are very left-brained,
mhm.
analytical, science-based people with maybe medical degrees, that sort of thing, who then go through the experience and they say it's not biochemical or it's something more, it's something bigger than that, and they're certain of it. It's really interesting to see those types of responses that people have.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
amazing. And having done that, I mean, I had no faith. When once my mom died, I was like, I'm done with this. There's no God that would do this. And I have no faith at all, no daily practice. And my life was pretty, I'd get up, I'd go to work and whatever I was doing, I'd come back, I'd have dinner with the family, maybe I'd go watch a show or do some more work and repeat. I didn't make time for community. I didn't make time for clubs. I didn't make time for anything outside of generating revenue for the house.
Hmm.
Um, and my life is completely different now. And I just didn't know what I was missing. And what I was missing were the things that feed my heart and my soul.
Mm.
Um, all right, sticking with drugs, we talked about ketamine, we talked
So
about
yeah, okay, we
psilocybin.
talked two of them. Yeah.
Um, I've experienced ayahuasca a number of times. Just this past summer, as an example, I went down with a group of veterans to Peru, a group called Heroic Hearts Project, which sends veterans to Central and South America and now to Oregon, where they can access legal psychedelics. I was putting a book together called The Veterans Guide to Psychedelics for to benefit Heroic Hearts Project,
Mm.
and that was fascinating to see how that medicine was used with Shipibo healers. It's a community down in Peru, um, and to
What
feel
was
how
it
that
like for those veterans? I imagine
uh,
some had PTSD or other traumas that they
traumatic
were,
brain injury,
yeah.
PTSD. It was so incredible to watch them. First of all, Heroic Hearts Project does an amazing job with their veterans. They give every veteran individual coaching and then group coaching in advance of these experiences. They then send them down with a member of the Heroic Hearts team down into Peru or Mexico or Oregon. They have time to acclimate. They then go through three different ayahuasca ceremonies, another day to acclimate. Then afterwards, when they get back, they have three more individual sessions and three more coaching sessions. It's a
Wow.
beautiful process. Um, Watching these veterans of various ages experience experience this medicine and this medicine that works so profoundly on things like shame and blame and guilt and helps put them into a state. Again, I don't believe the medicine, I don't believe does the healing. I believe it puts the person to the point where they can heal themselves. And by reducing shame and blame and guilt and bringing things up and bringing it close where they can look at it and analyze it and then emotionally move through it, it's incredible to watch. And I say all that, and with a strong encouragement that if an entrepreneur is listening to this and say, okay, that's great, that works for them. What would I do? The thing that I would add, if possible, is that you do this in a place where you can have a community to move into afterwards, a community that you can talk to, a community that you can reflect on, a community that can help you integrate on an ongoing basis these experiences and these insights and these awakenings that happen on the medicine. But yeah, it's incredibly powerful for the veterans. It is amazing to me that we allow almost 18 veterans a day to kill themselves, and we don't offer more tools for psychiatrists and psychologists and coaches to use with this particular population. I don't know if you know, John, but since 9/11, there's been about 7,000 combat deaths. So active service members killed in combat from 9/11 till today. In
Mm.
that same time period, over 30,000 veterans and service members have killed themselves.
Mm.
So
Wow.
it is an epidemic, it is a problem, and it is a problem that can be solved, at least partially solved, by allowing these medicines to be used with them.
And I don't remember the exact examples, but I know I've read of studies that have that veterans or people with PTSD have participated in that have had dramatic
Mm.
impact in a positive way from experiences with psychedelics. Do you want to talk a little bit about those?
Yeah, I'm happy to. You're referring to the two phase three clinical trials with MDMA that occurred, and where they gave people with treatment-resistant post-traumatic stress disorder. So let me slow down here for a minute. These are people where nothing has worked. They've tried
But
the
they've
various
tried it all, yeah.
pharmacological, the antidepressants, they've tried the talk therapies, nothing has worked. And they've given them 3 sessions with MDMA with therapy before and therapy after. In those two clinical trials, it was like 78%, 78% emerged without qualifying as with having PTSD anymore.
That's incredible.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
So our government didn't approve it. The FDA did not approve it on this last round, but we are hoping that with the new administration and the revised look at this, that that they'll have some mercy and
Mm.
say the science is good enough, and we need another tool. And we know almost 18 veterans a day are dying. We can do better than that.
It's crazy. I mean, I can think of a friend who is a therapist and who works with uh, actually imprisoned populations,
Hmm.
has worked with imprisoned populations, and you know, it's crazy because it's like a lot of our therapists, and I don't want to. I'm not trying to denigrate the profession at all, but there are therapists who will say that it's like we have these set of tools that don't work that well, but it's the tools that we have. And then there's this other big tool over here, which we can't use and that is far more effective. And it frankly is not legal. And it's just a shame. I really hope, I also can think of another friend who had PTSD. I was in this small group talking about this with this small group, and had really, really bad PTSD their entire life, and had one session with MDMA. And this is a very analytical, intelligent person. Had one session with MDMA. Finally, was like, nothing works. Tried it all, doesn't work to help me with my PTSD. And what they said to this group was that the experience of that journey on MDMA wiped away their PTSD, like gone, like that.
Yeah.
And also that the experience of that journey, the loss of that trauma of the PTSD was this amount of the entire experience. And I'm waving with my hands for people who are listening to this. Like the experience was so much larger than the solving of the PTSD piece. And to me, that just blew me away. That someone who suffered so dramatically, finally took it into their own hands and said, legal or not legal, I'm going to do this. And a solution actually existed to help them with their pain.
Yeah, it is incredible to hear those stories, and I can share a personal story along those lines where I had an experience during my puberty years with a family member 10 years older that was traumatic. And it was something that even in my like, EO forum, I couldn't talk about. If anyone even made a joke adjacent to this, my ears would burn. I'd get a pit in my stomach. And in a psychedelic journey, I was right back there. And what they teach us is when we see something that's scary or uncomfortable, don't resist it. If you see a dragon, Bill Richards says, crawl up its nose and look out its eyes. So I followed directions. Okay, what are you here to teach me? Why am I back here? I don't want to be here. And I was able to see the entire experience, not through my eyes, but through hers. And without condoning the behavior, I was able to understand the humanity. I was able to understand, wow, okay, this was a human who was so lonely, was so rejected, was dealing with substance use challenges. And again, I don't have to condone to understand and find empathy. And with that, I could also remind myself that I wasn't the adult in the room and that there wasn't anything. I don't need to carry this. I don't need to be embarrassed by this. And it just went away. And it's shocking to me that this is something I carried around for decades and it just went away.
Mm.
Um, and I hear that a lot with people who are all sorts of different reasons that they come to the medicine. and those things. This is not uncommon. The other group that this is really incredibly powerful for is people facing end of life distress. Um,
And there's been some studies on that
Beautiful
as
stuff.
well. I'll point people to the How to Change Your Mind documentary, which is on
Hmm.
Netflix, which is based on the book by Michael Pollan, which talked a bit about some of these studies of people facing end of life, terminal illnesses, that sort of thing, and helping them dramatically in their waning weeks or months.
Yeah, it is amazing to me that it just seems so inhumane that if someone has a terminal illness and is feeling, of course, they're feeling distress and anxiety and depression and end of life despair. The idea that we're going to give them a medicine, an antidepressant, see if it works, and then if it doesn't, wean them off and try it again versus one dose of psilocybin, which there's a beautiful study at NYU, and they gave terminal cancer patients one dose of psilocybin, and it was almost an 80% response rate, a reduction in depression, anxiety, distress. It's a big number, one
Yeah.
dose. They followed up with those still living, by the way, 4.5 years later, and it was like 77% still said, still affecting me.
Hmm.
So not only does it have an immediate reaction, it has a reaction that lasts. Um, I love one of the things I'm excited about it is in the ceremonial world, we're used to working with people who are dying and working with their loved ones. So I worked with a group recently. It was a woman with terminal stage 4 cancer, her husband, her two children, her two best friends, and it was a goodbye ceremony. And those are so beautiful.
Hmm.
Um, I'm excited when I start seeing there's a study being done up in Maryland right now with cancer patients. They get to pick one loved one, and they both get MDMA, and they're studying the results. And like, of course, the results are going to be amazing. Of course, they are. What kind of when you take away the shame, the blame, and guilt, when you take a medicine that helps us remember that we are spiritual creatures having a human experience, when we believe in our body that this is not the end, but it's a transition, of course, that alleviates depression and anxiety. And then that person who is dying oftentimes takes the role within the family, within the friends of saying, I'm okay.
Hmm.
I'm okay. And I'm going to be okay. And you know what? You're okay. And there's so much healing that can be done. And if there are conversations that need to be had, when the shame, the blame, and the guilt comes away and the time span that is short becomes apparent, those conversations can happen and people can put aside the pettiness that separated them. The oh, you took the wrong political side. You took the money back in the whatever day. You whatever. Those things can go away and healing can happen while we can still be on the same plane together. And it's just beautiful work.
Yeah, I can see how it moves you being able
Mm.
to be a part of all this. And I can see also why you have put so much energy into it, written books, done speeches, all that stuff. Matt, we're about out of time, but we we covered a lot. But I don't want to let you off the hook with the different medicines.
Okay.
So psilocybin you mentioned, ayahuasca you mentioned, MDMA you mentioned. One thing that I'm kind of curious about is that they're kind of loosely grouped into the psychedelics term. It's not. I don't believe psychedelics is a medical
It's
terminology.
not, no, it's
Yeah.
mind or soul manifesting. It's a made up word from the 60s. The All right, if I have to, I'm going to try to be tight here because of time. We have the classic psychedelics, things like mushrooms, ayahuasca, iboga. We have synthetic psychedelics, that's like LSD, MDMA. There's hundreds of synthetic psychedelics. And then we have really what's a dissociative. Ketamine is not a psychedelic, it's a dissociative anesthetic, but it operates similarly enough and it's better marketing. So they call it a psychedelic, but it's really not.
Hmm.
Um, if I have to pick one more medicine to talk about, so I'm going to group it this way. Psilocybin is, think of it as like the interconnectedness of all things. It's a medicine that when you take it, you remember that you are not separate and apart from nature. You are nature.
Hmm.
And that for me um, has been incredibly freeing to understand how supported I am by the world, period. I don't need to do anything. to breathe and to enjoy this universe that is so many gifts everywhere. Psilocybin reminds me of that. And I can see that you and I might look like separate waves. We're all part of the same ocean. And I can
Hmm.
see that, I can understand it. When we get into MDMA or MDA, those are empathogens. Those are heart openers. So when we take those medicines, we feel love for ourselves and for others. And it's beautiful for PTSD. It's beautiful for couples therapy, where when a partner can say to the other, "Oh my God, I love you so much. And when you do this, it makes me feel this way." And instead of reacting, the other party can hear it and can feel it and can say, "Oh my goodness, I know you've said that 100 times and I never heard it until now.
Hmm.
And I'm sorry, that's not how I want you to feel. And I'm going to act with a different level of awareness moving forward." And then they do. So heart openers are that second class. And the third class would be things like, or not things, it would be specifically 5-MeO-DMT, which is also known as bufo or the toad. Um,
This is a funny one because it comes from a frog.
It does. It comes from the
Yeah.
Sonoran Desert toad. It's a
Yeah.
venom from the toad. There is a synthetic version that's very effective, and there's people who strongly advocate don't use the natural, only use the synthetic, and they have a belief system around that. There's others who say, no, you've got to use it from the toad because it comes with other stuff that's not in the synthetic. And there is good reason there are unethical harvesters who harm the toads.
Mm.
Um, so again, being careful where your medicine comes from. But what I like about this medicine is, unlike the others, there's no subject and object. It's the only non-duality medicine, which means in the other medicines, you might not be you, but you're a something, and you're in some framework of time and some framework of place. With 5-MeO, I call it like dissolving into math. Like, you take this medicine, you inhale it typically, there's other ways to take it, and within about 10 seconds, I just drop into the vibration of the universe. There's no me, there's no time, there's no place. There's just this steady vibration and light, and I've just never experienced a feeling like I have. They call it the God molecule. They many people say it's like your personal conversation with whatever it is that you consider source.
Hmm.
Um,
It's also very fast acting, right?
You're talking about a 20
Yeah.
minute journey.
Mm.
From there are ways to extend it, but for most people it's fast acting and 20 minutes.
Mm.
Again, like the others, be careful of, I don't really recommend, there are places that you can go down and just have one toad experience. It's a lot. It's a lot to take on. So I would think twice about that. There are retreats though that just serve toad, and you go down and you do preparation and you have a few different 5-MeO experiences over time. There are other retreats that you might have a heart opener one day, an interconnectedness of all things another, and then a toad experience. And I think that builds it up quite naturally for people. So just be aware that's a heavier, stronger medicine, and typically not a first time into the pond type
And
of tool.
and two things I want to kind of point out about this is that one, I believe all these medicines are considered non-addictive.
Yep.
Correct.
Everyone except ketamine, weirdly. The only one
Hmm.
that's legal in all 50 states is the only one that has addictive potential.
Interesting. So non-addictive, and also, as far as we know, again, not totally harm-free, but not harmful like meth or like cocaine or something like that, even though it's grouped into the same categorization legally, and at least here in the United States.
Yeah, these are all Schedule 1, same category. Yeah, all Schedule 1, meaning there's no medical use. Cocaine at least has some medical use, according to our government. But yeah, no biological risk of addiction. Things like MDMA, that heart opener I was talking about, there are kids who young people end up using it more frequently as a behavioral. But they also have a regulator where you can burn your receptors out, and MDMA is no longer effective. But yeah, there isn't a lethal dose of psilocybin or LSD that anyone knows. There isn't a risk of addiction with either of those medicines. And if
Crazy
you're
how they've been grouped like that for so long.
They've just been grouped like that. If you're
Yeah.
curious though about your particular um, risk profile with these medicines, one reference I always give is Dr. Ben Malcolm. So if you go to spiritpharmacist.com, this is a PharmD, and all he does is medical intakes for people who are considering using psychedelics. And why do I recommend a third party? Emily Culpa, Dr. Emily Culpa is another one with a K. If you're looking at a retreat, so you're an entrepreneur and, oh, I've heard about this retreat in Jamaica or Costa Rica or Mexico, and it's $7,000. Okay, great. And they have an interest to sell you a seat. So if you're curious, I have this weird thing or this other, I want my own information first. Go to a Ben or an Emily first, get your own information, find out what they think about your risks with psilocybin or MDMA or whatever else that you're thinking of, and then decide once you have that power, what you want to do with that. Okay, I still want to work with ayahuasca. Great. I'm now going to go to Peru and go to this retreat center. Amazing. And the same thing is true if you're working with an underground therapist or a coach. The same thing is true if you're thinking about a ketamine clinic that's above ground. The same thing is true if you're going to go to one of the 500 to 1,000 psychedelic churches that exist in America. You may want to get your own medical check. If you have anything that's, I have a parent who's bipolar or schizophrenic, or I'm taking specific prescriptions, or I'm doing chemo and I want to figure out how to move psychedelics into my chemo regimen.
Yeah.
Well, lots of things are possible.
Look into your personal. Yeah. That's great. Well, Matt, this has been great. I want to wrap up with my last question, which is my gratitude question. I'm a big fan of giving guests a little bit of space at the end here to acknowledge anyone who has been on the journey with them, so to speak. Not just the psychedelic journey, but the journey of life, and anyone in particular you want to thank.
Yeah, I think for today, since this is an entrepreneurs focused podcast, I have my dear friend Russ, who's been, he and I started our journey in EO on the same day, same training. We went through all those years talking about how to be a better, more effective person, spouse, business owner. And then we've been on different components of this journey. And he's one of the guys when I'm feeling challenged, I can call him and know that he's going to laugh and be like, how's that working for you? Of course, this is right. Of course, it's good. How's it working for you? And I just love his constant optimism that that everything is exactly as it's needed to be. And the faster I can get to acceptance, the faster I can move through this.
We should all have a Russ in our life.
Everybody should have a Russ in their life.
Mm-hmm. Matt, where can people go to learn more about you, connect with you, your website, LinkedIn, anything like that?
Yeah, mattzemon.com is my website. I'm active on LinkedIn. I'm active on Instagram. All my books are on Amazon and everywhere books are sold. And if you are looking, I take calls all the time for people who have questions. If you're dealing with for yourself, for your parents, for your children, I'm happy to truly have a deep conversation. No charge, just spreading good information. I want to help people get good information so they can make the decision that's right for them without judgment.
Excellent, Matt. Thanks so much for your time.
John, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the Smart Business Revolution podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.